Hello everybody, my name's James and welcome to Ask James, my regular YouTube stream where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. To timestamp this for the benefit of those on the audio, it's just gone 12 p.m. UK time, and as usual I'll be answering questions in order of submission up to around about 1 p.m. or if we get through all the questions before then, as we are in the middle of the interlull. I presume it will be quieter in the chat than normal. I've got nothing specific on the agenda that I want to cover, so happy just to get straight into the questions. Chris Bruce is first this afternoon, James. Wildcard 31, so undecided, -4 for Beto and Palmer for Haaland and the 4.3 million midfielder, or Beto to Mateta for free. I guess ultimately, Chris, this will come down to captaincy quite a bit for you. I'll guess that you've probably got Mo Salah on board, but that's not necessarily the case. I'm guessing as you don't have Haaland at this moment, you probably still do. So if you intend to get Haaland in and captain him, it's effective you kind of -4 start over Salah, isn't it? So if presuming Salah was going to be your captain instead, that's part of the equation here, isn't it? Rather than just the transfers. I'm guessing maybe you weren't going to start Beto, so the Beto to 4.3 is irrelevant. It's just probably Haaland in for Palmer and what the impact of the captaincy is on that. My instinct would be, although tougher fixture for Liverpool, no doubt, I wouldn't be bringing Haaland in for a -4 for one game week to move the captaincy off Mo Salah. So if that's the case, Chris, I'd probably be sticking where you are, going Mateta for the 1 week, assuming he's past fit, which we do anticipate, and obviously we get the information of Palace's FA Cup quarter-final beforehand. I'd probably just be making that move, mate. CMP says, hey James, do you think Trippier starts every game weeks 30 to 32? I have a high team value and I'm considering taking a punt. I like the fixtures, on set pieces and BPS potential. Well, I think there's no reason to think that he wouldn't, is probably the best thing I can say to you. Lewis will obviously ruled out to the end of the season. Trippier, who was kind of looked like he was going to be on his way out of Newcastle last summer, as per what Simon Bibby obviously said on the Fan View on Tuesday, has obviously got himself back in. Livramento covers really well at left back, so I don't really see any reason why not, but he's obviously at an older age. In game week 32, Newcastle do play Manchester United on the Sunday, Palace Wednesday, and then Villa Saturday. So would he play all three of those games across 32 to 33? I suspect probably yes, considering they don't play in the midweek before or the midweek afterwards. So yeah, you should be all right if you want to take that as a punt. He's not going to be the asset for you. We're extremely unlikely to be. That obviously was in all of our teams going back sort of circa 20 to 22 months or so ago. But if you don't need the money over the next few weeks, mate, that's fine. If Trippier and Livramento were the same price, you'd go Trippier, I think, wouldn't you? Because the impact of the set pieces and his crossing ability. So yeah, if you don't need the money, go for it. Hasselbank's win says, were you a fan of Emmanuel Adebayor? Certainly superior than the average calibre of strikers we see these days. Also thoughts on Tuchel's brutal honesty on England Euro 24. Yeah, I liked, on Tuchel, just first and foremost, I liked some of his comments yesterday. I think the brutal honesty is probably needed because he has one remit, and that's to win the World Cup next year, and there's nothing further to it at the moment. So he's trying to install an absolute winning mentality and trying to make the players feel as comfortable as possible. We spoke about that quite a bit yesterday, so I don't have any problems with it, and I don't think we could reflect on it and say it's incorrect, right? England did look short of ideas last summer despite reaching the final. On Adebayor, it was obviously a player that wasn't liked when he wore red and white. From the Tottenham perspective, it was then quite funny, the celebration for Manchester City. When he joined us on loan in the 11-12 season, I can only tell you that he was absolutely outstanding for us and a really, really key player. Played really well from us. But we did get warned by fans of Arsenal and Manchester City that if we signed him permanently, we wouldn't get the same player. You think he's worth buying because he's been great for us. Sure enough, we bought him permanently and he was not the same player. So I think he needed some form of motivation, and perhaps his motivation that season at Tottenham was to prove that he could still play at the at the highest level and do really well. Perhaps he wasn't playing to play for Tottenham, right? Maybe he was expecting a better move. Was not the same player when we signed him permanently at all. But that 1 year on loan, yeah, he was absolutely outstanding. Chris Bruce says, what do you think about giving FPL a miss for a season if you are bored or disillusioned with the game? It's not something I would do. It wouldn't really work for me from a content perspective, would it? But if you don't want to play and you want to take a break, take a break. I repeat this message a lot, right? The game should be enjoyable, first and foremost. I understand it gets people down sometimes when you add bad beats, etc. But if you're not enjoying the game or you want to take a break for a year, do so. I don't see any reason why not, right? I'm not here to judge what other people should or shouldn't do. So if you want to take a year off, mate, take a year off. If you're bored or disillusioned with the game, sounds like you're not enjoying it, yeah, take a break, mate. Roseanne Fleur says, why are there 3 teams in one group and 5 teams in England group for FIFA World Cup qualifying? I don't think there's any groups with 3 teams, and then there's a number of groups with 4 teams, and obviously England's a 5. The reason England is a 5-team group is they have no Nations League involvement. There's obviously a lot of Nations League games been played obviously last night in terms of trying to win that competition, or obviously the promotion relegation playoffs. There's a lot of those games last night as well. And those teams will have further Nations League games on Sunday, I believe. So that's why England have got the 5-team group. That's why obviously England start their World Cup qualifying campaign tonight. James Brenner says, hi James, did you enjoy the new stick to football? The new stick to football. Oh, is that with you know who, is it? Yeah. Is that stick to football is the same as the overlap, is it? It's the one with Roy Keane and Ian Wright on it as well. No, I've not watched it. I have no intention of watching it. Laxman Shivraja says, can India football team win versus Bangladesh who have Hamza Chowdhury for them? I can't really answer that, mate, because I don't know the strength of the 2 teams. We did do a podcast a really long time ago, years ago, about the India football team and questioning why it had never really had success in football when it's an elite competitor, say in cricket. And that's one of the key reasons why is obviously the popularity of that particular sport. But we raised question marks about why a country that was so big and such a vast population had never really threatened from a football perspective on the world stage. Part of that podcast was also questioning if they could potentially host a World Cup in the future and what sort of benefit and impact that would potentially have on the sport. So ultimately, it's not the primary sport in that nation. So that's part of the reason why for the lack of success, unfortunately. On India, Bangladesh this weekend, mate, I'm not going to bullshit you, mate. I wouldn't have a clue. Sam Begginson says, hi, James. I'll see where this is going. Have you listened to or heard any of the Sol Campbell interview on Stick to Football? I'm an Arsenal fan and thinks he makes a massive boob of himself, as he seems to have a habit of doing. No, I've not watched any of it. I've got no interest in watching any of it, so I'm not going to put the boot in and dig out. I have seen a few comments online saying he doesn't come across great. That's fine. It doesn't surprise me. I've not seen any of it. I have no interest in seeing any of it. So again, I'm not going to blag and go into it any further. FPL Uproar says, good afternoon, James. If Mateta is fit, would you bench Bowen versus Wolves or Bumo versus Newcastle? Could bench Palmer, but not sure about that. Have a great weekend, bud. You too, pal. Certainly wouldn't be benching Palmer against Tottenham. I spoke about this earlier in the week. If he's past fit, I have absolutely zero intention of selling Cole Palmer ahead of the fixture against my team, and he's also got Ipswich at home in game week 32, so he'll be sticking for me as long as he's given the thumbs up, which we think he probably will do. It's worth noting that obviously as the Chelsea-Tottenham game is not until the Thursday, there is a possibility that going into the deadline you won't have confirmation. But I suspect if he's in training, we'll probably get some leaked photos or something like that. My understanding from reports this morning is that he's been for a scan, possibly on his back, actually. And I did see one journalist, forgive me, I can't remember the name, that said nothing serious has come back from that. Now, I think you can read into the word serious however you want. The word serious could be there's nothing serious, but there is a problem. or it's just there's no problem, and I think people can use the word serious. So there's nothing serious. If I express it like that, it means there's nothing wrong. So we don't have that information as yet. I suspect he'll be all right. It's obviously a massive game for Chelsea playing against my team. It's the game that's most important for the supporters there. So I imagine there will be every effort for Palmer to play that game. And of course, Chelsea are in a real kind of tight race for trying to finish in the top 5, and that's particularly important to them as well. So I imagine he'll play. I certainly wouldn't bench him. He's very unlikely to be a substitute, mate. He'll play or he won't. Let's put it that way. In terms of Bowen versus Bumo, that's a tough one. It's a tough one because Bowen certainly has the better fixture. But Bumo, I think, has shown greater ability to get more consistent returns throughout this season. Perhaps we should just judge Bowen on some of the more recent stuff under Potter. They're a little bit light up front at the moment, West Ham. Ultimately, though, you're asking a fixture guy, so I would be playing Bowen over Bumo under that circumstance. Colin Johnson says, hi, mate. No question. Just thanks for great content. As always, you're very welcome, Colin. Have a good weekend, mate. Thank you. Nathan Smith says, hi, James. Do you ever speak to Ben Crellin or the other fixture gurus to compare notes, or do you all do it separately? It's an interesting question. Certainly, I can say me and Ian Parrin have bounced ideas in the past when Sky Fantasy format was in existence, in terms of which day certain games would be, and I would certainly bow to Ian's incredible understanding of how television fixtures work. I've also had conversations, certainly with Tal and Nadeem in the past. Me and Ben have DM'd each other in the past when one of us has felt we had information for the other, or if we'd spotted something that the other had said and perhaps disagreed with and just wanted to point something out. So certainly in terms of me and the other guys, there's only interest in helping each other. This year, I've not had anything that would suggest anything on fixtures that would be worthwhile sharing with the guys. You hear rumours, but nothing more than that. And this year, I've kind of very much worked as a lone wolf on it. Not because I don't like any of these guys. They're all amazing, right? Ben's a great lad. It was a pleasure to meet him at the Game Week 39 games and stuff. But I do personally enjoy the process of trying to work it out myself. And that therefore means, and I've said this in the past, if there's a group think where all the other guys who are doing their projections maybe come to one solution and I come to a different one, then there's every chance they're going to be right and I'm going to be wrong. That's absolutely how it is. So I enjoy the process of trying to work it out and putting the pieces of the puzzle together. I often speak about that in terms of FPL as a whole, of enjoying the process of the planning and the decision making more than I can kind of switch off from the returns at the weekend, because the weekend comes and the only thing that truly matters to me is what Tottenham do. So I enjoy the process of working it out myself. There hasn't been anything this year where I've gone to any of the other guys and said, what do you think about this? That's happened in the past, certainly. So I would say the honest answer to your question is, Nathan, very happy to share ideas. And I also only want to help the guys. If I did have some information, I'd share it. That's always the way I've worked. And I certainly know Ben would be similar from that perspective as well. But no, this year I've just worked it myself, really. I've not had many discussions with the other guys. Alfredo Demetrius says, why is there no Rakaba League this time in FPL? Is it because you won it last year? Might be. That's Suj's. I didn't even know that there was or there wasn't, right? So that's Suj's to set up. Suj probably never set it up, so that's probably the reason why, mate. Rima Rodri says, can Suj and Clayton catch up in the FPL League? They both are nearly 50 points behind you. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd reference back this conversation that Suj and I had towards the start of Monday's podcast about Suj having more in the bank in terms of free transfers and greater chip ability to me, saying that, yeah, absolutely, he could still catch me. He made up 45 points for me last week, right? 1 week. Now, it's more likely to happen in a blank or a double game week, for example, but there's nothing to say that can't happen again across a double or a blank. We're obviously both out the free hit now. There's every chance we're probably going to wild card in the same week, but he's got far greater ability than me in terms of transfers, so he might be able to, in game week 33, add 5 doublers, for example, that I wouldn't be able to do. So, yeah, he can definitely still make up the gap on me. I'm not quite sure what Clayton's got left But yeah, 50 points over 9 game weeks. Can it be made up? Well, as just said, should have just done 45 over 1 week, right? And ultimately, 34 points of that is down to Bruno Fernandes, right? So if you make the right captaincy choice, he's more than halfway there, isn't it? So yeah, they can catch me, no doubt about it. JP says, what's your England 11 tonight? Oh, God. Can I be really honest and say I've not give it a second thought? It sounds like it's probably going to be a back four. Can I be honest? I don't really care. Albania is probably the third strongest team in our 5-team group. With all due respect, whatever team that Tuchel picks tonight has obviously got to win. Latvia should be beaten, obviously, on Monday. Albania is not a foregone conclusion, but whatever team we put on the pitch, obviously, should be getting the job done tonight. So there's no excuses. Man, I've not even thought about it. Really not. I think there's some obvious ones in there. Kane will play. Jude will play. Declan Rice will play. I would think Mark Gay, with what we've got, is probably first choice centre-back. I would assume it's still Jordan Pickford in goal. The wide areas and the rest of the team, I guess, is very much up for debate. And also considering we've got a game Friday and a game Monday. Put it this way, whatever team he picks, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, what's he done? We had discussions about the squad Wednesday and the bits I like and the things I don't like. I'm kind of understanding some of his ideas and his methods behind some of the more experienced players he's picked. It's fine. I would be surprised, say, if Jordan Henderson started tonight, for example. But if he does, he does. Ultimately, it's not about now. The England team, as long as it gets the job done and the results done, is fairly irrelevant till next summer. It's just about arriving at the World Cup at the right time with the ability to go and win the competition. So certainly no stress about it, not bothered about it. He should pick the stronger of the two teams tonight rather than Monday. But I've really not thought about it, mate. I'm not fussed. The players that I said, the core players, will play, won't they? Giacomo Zamboni says, is there any content creator that you truly dislike? Not asking who, of course. The answer's no. No, there isn't at all. But I would also tell you honestly that if there was, I wouldn't tell you either. No, I've got loads of respect for all the content creators, whether it's just in the FPL space or others. I suppose I could go down the route of saying that there are content creators I dislike in the non-FPL sphere. Not worth bringing out. It's the attention-seeking stuff, the clickbait kind of jazz. But no, a massive respect for everybody that's providing FPL content. There's certainly no one in our space that I've ever met that don't get along with. There are some I like more than others, would be fair to say, but an actual dislike, no. And in all honesty, if I didn't, I'm certainly not going to say now and put someone under the bus, but there isn't anyone anyway. Harry Trimble says, hey James, loved the show. Thanks for recommending Elanga last week over Hudson-Odoi. Yeah, go me. Who would you bench between Semenyo against Ipswich, Boomer at Newcastle, and Elanga against United? Well, from that, it probably is Elanga, isn't it? The fact that Bumo's on many of the set plays and pens gives him the advantage, I think, over Elanga. Semenyo against Ipswich, you got to play, really, I think. I think just ultimately can't really be benching attacking players against any of that bottom three, I don't think. As long as it's, mildly decent. Would you play... I'm trying to think of an example. Would you play Ryan Yates for Forest against Southampton? No. But anything that's reasonable going forward has pretty much got to be in the team against that bottom three, I think. Kieran Mahan says, can you give us some insight into your thoughts navigating the remainder of the season without a free hit? It says, bench boost 32, wildcard 33, question. Bench boost 33, wildcard 34, question. Alternatives, taking hits to set up for bench boost. Well, certainly it's striking there, Kieran, that if you don't have a free hit and you're wildcard in 33, quite what you're doing for 34 would be very interesting, because it's highly likely that whoever doubles in 33 won't play in 34, right? So what you're committing to a maximum of sort of 5 players that have got doubles. It depends how many free transfers you've got and stuff as well, I suppose. Look, you could get around it if you wildcarded 33 and had 5 free transfers. You can obviously jump back, right? That would kind of be fine under that circumstance. But generally speaking, no, wildcard 33 is not an option there. I like bench boost 32. I've spoken about that a lot. I think the ugly bit about that is West Ham. And that's why we spoke on Monday about potentially leaving West Ham as your last decision going in towards game week 33, because they do go to Liverpool in 32. but the majority of other teams that would be of interest at the moment have a really good fixture in 32. So I quite like that. I've spoken about this a number of times. I think there might be some deviation on wildcards over the next, how long have we got here? 14 days. To look to bench boost in 32 rather than 33. Ultimately, if you're trying to get through 33 and 34 and going to wildcard before that period, you cannot go too heavy to the doublers, right? As kind of just said. One way of navigating it for someone like me who doesn't have the free hit is obviously, wildcard 34. I still think, Kieran, one option that you've not mentioned there is to bench boost 32 and then still wildcard 34. But I also do think for those who go really heavy towards a good team 32, you might naturally land quite well for game week 34. Therefore, it might just be that wildcard 35 is the right solution. Ultimately, as well, you're going to be impacted by how good does your team look now or not. I've said the majority of teams, I think, landing game week 30 will land good. And therefore, I don't think there's justification for many to wildcard in this week. However, I have seen some bum sites of teams that absolutely do need a wildcard now. So it's circumstantial to what you've got. Mr. FIPA99 says, what's your early prediction for largest transfer fee this summer? Wow. Isak, if he goes, that's not to say he will, but that's the name that comes to mind straight away, that if he goes, that'll be the biggest deal. Yeah. Depends, I guess, what forward Arsenal buy. I'm not sure that they would get Isak. How much would they pay for a Gyökeres if that's who they want, for example? I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to be near towards what Newcastle want for Isak. To be honest, I think that the talking of numbers with Isak, I think starts in sort of like the 120 region. I really do. I think he's that good. So if Isak moved, I fail to see that he wouldn't be the biggest transfer of the summer. Trying to think of... I couldn't see the likes of Haaland moving this summer. It's that if he moves. And I think he might if they don't finish top 5. But if they do, I think he'll stay, actually. XYZ says, hi, James. I have one free transfer. 0 in the bank. And Williams, Gabriel, Castagne, Visser starting. What to do? Wildcarding in 31. A, Visser to Evan-Nilsson. Or B, Visser to Evan-Nilsson and Hall to Munoz for a -4. Or C, Hall to Gay and roll. Well, I think you've got enough issues there that you probably want to deal with stuff. There's nothing wrong with... You've got to kind of break it down, right? There's nothing wrong with playing Gabriel this week. There'll be nothing wrong with playing Nico Williams at home to Manchester United. And actually playing Visser at Newcastle is not terrible, right? Castagne away to Arsenal is a big problem. Now, to mitigate that, you're obviously talking about selling Hall. I think I'd do that. So the option where you go Visser to Evan-Nilsson is tempting. Is that worth a -4 on a 1 week? Questionable. But you're effective here on getting Munoz in for Hall is actually effective. Is doing it over Castagne, I guess, because you're probably moving him to the bench instead. Munoz worth a minus. Do Munoz and Evan-Nilsson on 1 week outscore Castagne and Visser by more than 4? I'd probably chase that, mate. Probably borderline close, but you'd certainly fancy those two players to buy to outscore Castagne and Visser. So yeah, I'd probably chase the -4 on that, I think. William Gatlin says, hi James, thanks for the great pods this year. Do you have a particular favourite performance from an individual? Maybe one Spurs and one from any team, as in an individual performance from this season. Wow. Solanke against Villa when he scored twice, because it was the double of the goals for Tottenham and my FPL team. So maybe that one, but that's not the best Tottenham individual performance this season. Dan Kulusevski had a 15-minute spell against Roma in a Europa League game. He was just untouchable. That springs to mind. He was also outstanding in the 4-0 victory at Manchester City. Individual performance. Oh, it's got to be a few Mo ones in there, isn't there? I'm struggling to pick one out off the top of my head straight away. It feels like there's got to be a few, isn't there? It's putting me very much on the spot of a whole season's worth of football. I'd tell you one, Cole Palmer against Brighton. That's another one that was good for me in FPL as well. So let's say Cole Palmer's 4-goal haul against Brighton. Rima Rodri says, also, do you plan to create Planet FPL correspondent head-to-head league next season, which will provide proper competitions between correspondents? Some of these questions. No, probably not, unless it's something the correspondents particularly wanted, mate. JP says, do I bench Bruno or Wood? Probably someone else, mate. I think probably Bruno. Very reluctantly out of that, but I would be having another look at the rest of my team, JP, under that circumstance. Bruno's on course, actually. I saw a stat from the official FPL account this morning, looking at his returns, and actually he's on course for his second best ever FPL season, actually, Bruno. Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable benching either of them. FPL Uproar would like everyone to like the stream. Yeah, mate, that would be truly appreciated, guys. Probably about 20% of you done, so it doesn't cost anything. Smash a like, be truly appreciated. For those listening to the audio, a 5-star review really does go a long way if you're enjoying the content. FPL Frost this afternoon, James, how viable would playing Kane behind a pressing striker be for England? Behind? No. So you could play him behind in a press. So what I mean by that is you could use him as more like a cover shadow presser, someone that would perhaps stop passing lanes and perhaps doesn't have to work as hard or sprint over certain distances in the same way. But ultimately playing Kane as a 10 behind Solanke, Watkins, Delap, whatever, seems unnecessary when England have so many options to play the 10 role in the likes of, Bellingham, Palmer, just as them two as a standout, right? Obviously got Foden, you've got others, Morgan Gibbs-White. Certainly someone I think could even play the position as well. So no, not particularly. I think I've spoken about this a lot over the years. I've spoken about him being a problem at Tottenham, despite clearly being our best player, that we couldn't necessarily play a pressing structure with him in the team. And I think ultimately next summer, if England want to go for a high press, which probably isn't recommended, by the way, considering the likely temperatures out in North America, but if that's what they decide to do want to do, there has to be a real conversation about his involvement in that team, in my opinion. Best goal scorer by a mile. Give him a chance, he'll take it for you, etc. But I think we should probably, despite the fact him clearly being England's best 9, we probably should be past the moment where he is an auto pick. The majority of games Harry Kane should play for England, I'm not questioning. I'm just saying, if England play a Germany next summer and decide they really want to go for a really high aggressive man-to-man press, there should be a conversation that happens rather than him just being an automatic to be in that team. Harry Trimble says, is it worth using a free transfer for Mateta this week or save it for later in the season for possible blank game at 35 or 36? Can't answer the question, Harry, because I don't know who you're selling, mate. But if you intend to get Mateta in on your path, do it. I'm guessing the way you've laced the question, you may well be wildcarding in 31. I think the potential upside of what a fit Mateta, assuming he is, which we can't be sure of yet, is available against Southampton. Yeah, put him in, ultimately. Excuse me, says JP, says, do I keep Visser? Brentford normally turn up versus the bigger teams, or am I imagining that? Are you imagining that? Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's give you a little bit of a statistic here. So, Brentford against the expected top 8. This is as per my planning spreadsheet that's available to patrons. So the expected top 8 is taken from the pre-season. So that's the greedy 6 plus Aston Villa and Newcastle. Brentford have taken 4 points from their 12 games against those 8 teams this season. They also, for the record, what about Nottingham Forest? They also, for the record, lost 2-0 at home to Nottingham Forest. Their points per game, out of interest, against the other 12, so that's the non-greedy 6, and Newcastle and Aston Villa, they are running at 37 points from 17 games played, running at 2.18 points per game, which is only bettered by Liverpool. So, statistically, JP, no, unfortunately, mate, that's completely the wrong way round. I think there has been a history of it, particularly in games at the G-Tech, where they've performed very well against some of the stronger opponents. But actually, their results this season against the biggest clubs, if you will, rather than necessarily the best teams, has not been good. Newcastle very much fall into that category, mate. So, no, it's incorrect. 18th is where they'd rank for that. To answer your question, like, there's nothing wrong with keeping Visser, but if you think there's better options, mate, crack on, mate, and deal with it, would be the advice. Lamici says, hi, James. If you had to replace Ange with an unemployed manager for the long term, who would it be? Allegri, Mancini, Terzic, Xavi are some of the names off the top of my head. I really like Roberto Mancini. I spoke about this on our Patreon podcast, Tottenham Asked with Clayton, on Wednesday, and I don't know if this is where this question is an extension of that, where I looked on Sunday night at unemployed managers and who could potentially do the best job for Tottenham just between now and the end of the season. And I referenced Roberto Mancini as not being the choice for that because he would be more of a longer term choice for you. And I don't think Tottenham, if they did decide to remove Ange, which there was no suggestion that they're going to do so, but if they did, then I don't think Tottenham should make a long-term appointment at the moment. I think they should only make an appointment that would be till the end of the season. And therefore I would discount Mancini. I reference names for the short term, people like Rafa Benitez, who I definitely would not want in the long term, but has a proven track record of winning big games. And ultimately, it would be about coming in and just trying to win the Europa League, right? So from that list, Lamici, yes, Mancini would be a preference for me. I don't think it will be any of them, by the way. Camrul, and that's going into the summer. Camrul Islam says, hi James, what do you think about Barcelona's chance in the Champions League with this high stake offside game plan? Ultimately, you've got to get it right. So there's risk and reward. There are plenty of teams that have done very well and won Champions League with high lines, right? And Barcelona are another one that are very, very capable. They're one of the best teams in this. The dual threat of Rafinha and Yamal can win them a game single-handedly. So teams have to know how to take advantage of it. You could look to a lower level, with all due respect, at Villa's high line. And difficulty teams had in trying to breach that. It's certainly during the first 12 months of Unai Emery's reign at Aston Villa, where the majority of teams just kept getting caught offside over and over again. So you have to breach it and get it right. There's a consequence of the majority of teams who play Barca won't have done so and played against this. So it's quite new in terms of trying to do it specifically against them. But yet they've got good enough quality with their best personnel available to be able to make it work. I would find it very unlikely that they'd go through a tie such as even Dortmund in the quarterfinals and not concede. But I'd expect them to score a lot more than Dortmund. Rennie Fern says, can you win the advanced tier head-to-head league? You are 15 points off first place. I guess so then, Rennie. Well, 15 points in a head-to-head? No, probably not. But thanks for telling me where I'm at, because I wouldn't have known. JP says, who should I sell to get Mateta, Marmoush out of Visser and Wood? Do you think Mateta's injury will affect his play and therefore I should go Marmoush? Strategy is quite important here, I think. So, but first and foremost, I would want a fit Mateta moving towards 32. And the time to invest, in my opinion, is game week 30 as long as he's fit. So that would be the preference. In terms of selling, yeah, I would probably move Visser on. I think if you compare the fixtures of Forest versus Brentford up to game week 34, I think Forest's run is significantly better. Truthfully, I don't think it's great, but I think it's better with, you know, United at home, Everton at home. Tottenham away is fine for the offensive players. Whereas Brentford have got to go to Newcastle, got to go to Arsenal. Chelsea at home. Chelsea's games tend to be lower scoring. Brighton at home doesn't scream returns either. So I'd prefer to have Wood over that sort of period. And to be honest, if you were judging it for anything less, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, it'd still be Wood over Visser for me. George Piraklabal says, hi James, do you think it's possible to have more doubles in 35 than in 33? Southampton, Fulham and Nottingham Forest, Brentford in 35, only City, Villa in 33. Absolutely possible, mate. Yep. Yep, absolutely is. It's my big fear, and I keep saying it about people wildcarding now to bench boosting game week 33 specifically and not having the information. What do these people do in that sort of circumstance where that happens? Now, Forest Brentford, we've identified by saying if Forest beat Brighton in a cup, is very unlikely to be brought forward to 33 because obviously Forest go to Tottenham on the Monday night in that week. Southampton Fulham can slot in on the Wednesday night, but I also as referenced on Chips and the Arseman Volume 3, which I recommend listening back to if you haven't listened to it. I recommend the problem, particularly if Fulham drew Aston Villa in the FA Cup semi-final, that they would highly likely have to have a schedule of Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday. Why make Fulham do that? You can play it in a different game week. So absolutely. I've mentioned this as a scenario where people could be heading towards a bench boost 33 and it might just be City v Villa. Could be. So, yes, it's definitely possible, George. Can I tell you now if that's going to happen? Absolutely not, mate. Zed says, hey, James, worth going... the AM strategy from 30 to 32, thinking Thomas Frank and then taking it from there or wait for 35 onwards. I don't like anything available, Arseman, in game week 30, I'm afraid. It really, really doesn't look great. So if I have a look at some of the options available, I'm just going to reference back to my plan and make sure I get this right. So potential bonuses in game week 30, which are obviously now confirmed. Marcus Silva away to Arsenal, meh. Thomas Frank away to Newcastle, meh. Amram away to Forest, he's arguably the best one. Ange away to Chelsea, no thank you. Moyes away to Liverpool, no. And then you got the bottom three, it's just not a consideration, I don't think. So, I mean, if I had to go in 30, it's a case to say Amram. What I do like about Amram and Frank is you can just leave it and go, yeah, there's 3 consecutive bonus games, highly likely. Brentford being Newcastle away, Chelsea at home, Arsenal away, United being Forest away, City at home, Newcastle away, and arguably you should just run through it under that sort of circumstance. I think, honestly, if I was doing that, I'd probably go Amram rather than Frank. Don't love either. If it was a choice now, you said to me, right, I'm locked into bench boosting 33 and I had to use it 30 to 32 or use it at the end, I'd use it at the end. Next up is Martin DeCock. What a great name, pal. Good afternoon, James. And I've lost your question, sorry. Would you take a -4 for 2 goalkeepers to hit the bench boost this week? According to Fantasy Football Hub, my bench would be Bowen, Hassan and Aït-Nouri. You're picking the same. Bowen and Aït-Nouri is obviously contradictory, playing against each other. Unlikely both to return. Possible, of course, to both get attacking returns. Unlikely. Would I take a -4 for the 2 goalkeepers? Probably not. You're doing it for single game week fixtures. So, truthfully, to find 2 goalkeepers who both keep clean sheets, probably unlikely. Tweetling 8, 9. Best case scenario. And then what? You're taking obviously 4 points hit off that. Not Kane, mate. Rennie says, can Tottenham finish 8th in the Premier League, only 11 points off? No. I don't even think we'll get 11 points between now and the end of the season, mate. Just being irrespective of what other teams do. So, no, mate. Interesting questions. Crimson Skull says, hi, James. Big fan of the show. My team looks good, but with no Palace or City for 30, should I take hits to bring them in or tough it out for Wildcard 31? What are you selling? What you say, don't sell good players just for the sake of, I've got Isak against Brentford. Oh, shit, I've got no Marmoush or Mateo. I better sell him. Don't do that, right? But what you're selling under the circumstances is so important here. So don't just take hits for the sake of it. For the 1 week specifically, I wouldn't consider probably anything for a hit that's Man City other than Haaland. Certainly at least until the Bournemouth game's gone and I'd looked at Marmoush's minutes against Bournemouth in the FA Cup. Palace, I don't think I'd take a hit for anything other than Mateta, mate. Unless obviously it's for injured players, fine. Palmer's confirmed out and you want to take a hit to get Eze, yeah, cool, do it. Jonathan Jump says, hey James, love the content. I'm 17. Any tips for life? Yeah, enjoy it. enjoy it. Enjoy it. Enjoy it the best you can, mate. It's a difficult age. You go through a lot of emotional stuff, and then you come into work, etc. I don't think any age is particularly easy. I would say the enjoy is the most important thing. Things that happen in your life now are probably not relevant to when you get to my age. Don't fuck up too much. Enjoy it. Don't be a dick about it, but enjoy it. Ultimately, when you get to 27, you'll probably be a completely different person. You will definitely be a different person when you get to 37. So enjoy yourself. You only get one shot at being a young adult. So enjoy it, mate. Steve says, hi, James. What are your thoughts on Morgan Gibbs-White being dropped from the England squad for the game tonight? Has Tuchel confirmed he's not in the squad tonight? I guess Tuchel's not that high on him because he wasn't going to be in the squad originally. If that's true, I've not seen anything about it yet, Steve, but ultimately it wouldn't surprise me. Maybe it's done and the intention of him starting on Monday. Fine. Liv J says, tick, play, transfer, bench. Wanyeri, Utara, better. I'm not sure I completely understand the question here, Liv. I presume it's going to be play one, transfer one, bench one. Play from that lot, Utara, because he's most likely to, out of them, get the return, even if it's off the bench against Ipswich. Bench Wanyeri and sell better. Almost Seko says, rephrase of my wildcard 31/35 question from last week. I'm not going to remember that, mate. Let's say we get no double game week 36. Is there still enough upside on the later wildcard to warrant, say, a 30-point loss over game weeks 30 to 34? Free hit, bench boost, triple captain left. Free hit 33 in both paths. Tar. I'm probably wildcarding at the end. And I think there's every chance when I do that there won't be doubles in 36. I'm obviously not worrying about a bench boost from that perspective. It's more the fact that I'll have to jump from the doubles to the blank period and I don't have the free hit to obviously navigate that. You've committed to a free hit 33, that's fine. If there's no doubles and judging by the fixtures, your gain is probably going to be better served using it now rather than later. But again, this is very team dependent, mate. Rewind says, hi James, in my opinion you're the best content creator out there. You're very knowledgeable and seem a great guy. Keep up the fantastic work. Thank you, mate, appreciated. Damien Rozowski says, first, second and third place teams in my mini league have your Ming Son in their team. Should I be concerned and transferring Son as Spurs play Southampton and Wolves after Chelsea? No, you shouldn't, mate. You probably won't even start against Southampton. The Wolves game's too far ahead to give you comment, but if you ask me now, I'd say yeah, he probably doesn't start against Southampton, mate. S. Ross says, hi James, exact money to do Palmer and Wood to Sarr and Haaland captain, wildcarding in 31. Do it if the price changes that happening for the FA Cup. No, mate. No, because there's alternatives you can consider, right? I can't have Sarr. There'll be an alternative, someone else you can take a punt on for 1 week instead, mate. You know, Jacob Murphy from Newcastle as an example, right? Be something else you can punt instead. Don't do it before, mate. Tricky MF says, I'm currently looking into navigating 30 to 34 without the free hit at the very least and bench boost in this period. Looking at free hit 38 as an opportunity to pick up major points. Done it before to top 1k. Thoughts? Not keen. I think that it could land great and it might not. Simple as that. Last year going into game week 38, many of us were left with a brutal scenario of benching people like Alexander Isak because teams were that strong. Right? What you free hitting to under that circumstance. Now, there are certain ones in game week 38 this year where, you know, you might have ditched your Bournemouth players. And I think from memory, they've got Leicester at home in game week 38. Yeah, that's correct. Newcastle have a tough run of fixtures, 35 to 37. You can come back for that. So I think it's more, are there teams in game week 38 you could target that you may want none of them between, say, 35, 37? There's a small case for Arsenal. There's definitely a case for Newcastle assets. There's a case for Bournemouth assets. maybe West Ham, not massively keen on that. Those would be the main reasons, sort of Bournemouth, Newcastle, Arsenal. Are those your main reasons to free hit? I guess you put Liverpool in that conversation as well, maybe at home to Palace. Are they good enough reasons to differentiate from what others will have at that stage of the season? I'm not massively keen. It will either fall nicely or it won't. I certainly wouldn't go through the looking to navigate the 30 to 34 period without the free hit. Personally, it would be much better served for you. I get the challenge of going through that period without using it, but I think you will make your life easier if you do just use it over the period between 33 and 34. Eddie R says, hey James, I'm on wildcard 31 and we're doing a defender transfer in game week 30. Can only afford Howson, Lacroix or Rico Lewis. I have no Palace, so was thinking of maybe targeting Southampton fixture. Any preference? Thanks. Yeah, quite like the Lacroix shout on that actually, if it's just a little 1 week punter. Yeah, he's a bit of a unit. It's every chance of the goal from the set play. Not a high chance, but a chance. As much as Howson against Ipswich. So probably, yeah, Lacroix. I certainly wouldn't go Lewis. Unless there was true reason to think he would start. Prashan says, hi James, do you think it's worth it to take -4 to go Bumo and Vissa to Eze and Mateta? Possible wildcard 31. I'm guessing you would have to do both to make that happen. You couldn't just say Vissa to Mateta, I'm going to guess. If you can, then no. If not, then I don't mind it, actually. Damian Rozalski says, is Tottenham versus Lazio possible in Europa League semis? When was the last time you played Lazio? Will you travel for the away game? Yeah, that's our most likely opponents. If we did go through, it's them or Bodo Glimt. And I don't think I'd be able to get to Bodo Glimt, which is nearly somewhere near Santa's house. Take me about 2 days to get there, legitimately, I think. Lazio, yeah, I would highly likely go. We played them in the Europa League. Try and get my season right here. 12-13. Yes, that's correct. 2012-2013 in the group stage, and both games were 0-0. Lazio certainly should have won in Rome. Lewis Stapleton says, when was the last time you won the Planet FPL Correspondent League? Did you ever win it? Don't be stupid, mate. I'm not good enough at fantasy to be winning that mini league, mate. Jack Brokenshire says, hi, James. What duo do you prefer? Murphy and Eze or Sarr of Crystal Palace? And Gordon, have a good weekend. Well, Gordon's still going to be suspended in game week 30, so at the moment there's not really any option to say Sarr and Gordon rather than Murphy and Eze. So it has to be Murphy and Eze, right? Jemima Unicorn says, should you roll if wildcard in next week and team is okay? Specifically, I want Munoz versus Southampton would be Timber out. Okay, I can only answer this on kind of my own example, right? So, my best team at the moment for game week 30, back three, would be Gabriel against Fulham, Vardio against Leicester, Kirkez against Ipswich. Right, so that's fine, isn't it? I've also got Colwell at home to Tottenham first sub, and there's every chance that's a clean sheet as well. So for me to put in Munoz is like, we can all look at it. I'd like to have Munoz. But if you're lined up similarly to me to that, what are we doing? There is probably more power in waiting, isn't there? Lewis Stapleton says, is the CONCACAF Gold Cup 2025 going ahead, or will it stop because of Club World Cup in USA? I have no idea, mate. Couldn't tell you. I saw your guy who scored for Panama against USA last night and screamed at Thierry Henry that he was his idol, which was quite something, actually. It's worth looking for if you haven't seen it. I don't know the answer, Lewis. Tricky MF says, thanks for the top content. You're very welcome. Ben says, thoughts on Jake O'Brien for the end of the season run, 4.5. Yeah, fine. We spoke about Jake O'Brien and Everton quite a bit on Monday's podcast about considering the end, particularly for later wildcarders, because it's Ipswich at home 35 and Southampton at home 37. So if you find the right rotation, that feels quite nice. And it's certainly the sort of player that would come under my consideration for a wildcard in 34. Ultimately, though, for what's left of this season, he would only start for me twice. And it's in those 2 game weeks. So wouldn't be looking at that now. If you're on wildcard and you're thinking that far ahead, and you're not bench boosting or you haven't got a bench boost left, then fine, mate. Neil Kager says, thanks, James. Hit the like, folks. Thank you, Neil. Have a good weekend. Vinda Lou says, hey, James. Thanks for the great content. I saw Spence do a top job on Boomer and I need a differential. What do you think of him for FPL? Cheers. As per Monday's podcast, mate. Wouldn't be considering any Tottenham players, mate. God knows if he plays against Southampton. Here's what will happen. This time next week, after Tottenham played Chelsea the night before, I will probably sit here and go, Destiny Doggy's probably going to start against Southampton on Sunday. Who's going to play with him, James? Don't know. It's probably the answer I'm going to give you. It's the exact same answer I give you last week. So I know Destiny Doggy's going to play against Fulham. I have no idea if it's Spencer or Porro. Please don't take that route, mate. Just don't do it. It's Tottenham as well. Come on. FPL match of the day says, hi, James. Under what circumstances free hit 33 better than 34 and vice versa? He's holding the wild card till later and bench boost 36, an option over game week 33. Thanks for the wonderful content. We can't really answer 36 until the FA Cup quarter-final draw, semi-final draw, sorry, and to know that Villa would be favourites to beat whoever they played in the semi-final if they beat Preston. And then we still need to wait for what Tottenham do in the Europa League semi-final to feel confident about there being a 36 fixture. I suspect if Tottenham lost to Frankfurt, it wouldn't happen. I don't think you can plan for bench boost 36 as it stands now. I really don't. I think there's a scenario where Tottenham will have played Frankfurt on the Thursday before 33. And if Tottenham go through, then you might just be waiting on Villa to win the semi-final. And there might be a point there where you can take a chance and make an adjustment from 33 to 36. If Tottenham have progressed in the Europa League, you would still be banking on Villa winning their semi-final, I think. I don't think you can plan for 36 bench boost right now. You can, but it's dangerous. Also, I will, in any case, throw in what I always say about those teams who might double in 36. Christ knows what you'd want from Villa and Tottenham if, for example, if they played each other in 36. You got Tottenham would have played Thursday Europa, Sunday Premier League, Wednesday Premier League. Great. And Villa would play on the Wednesday before the FA Cup final. What do you even want? What do you want? I don't think bench boost 36 is the way. I really don't. It might be adjustable for people, but I certainly wouldn't plan that way. In terms of free hit being better 33, 34, sorry, boring answer, but it's the truthful answer. It's circumstantial, isn't it? If you were sitting there right now and you're like, oh, I've got double West Ham, I've got double Brighton, and they end up winning and they're doubling 33. I've got Fulham, that covers that week that quite well. Like, he's probably better 34, isn't it? If you're without no players from those teams and they're all going to double in 33, then you're probably better off looking the other way, aren't you? Down to what you've got, mate. Sokana1 says, most undervalued players for wildcard. Minter and Murphy comes to mind. Minter I like as an option. I think Murphy, yeah. I'm probably not going to name two better answers than that, to be very honest with you. I think they're both very good shouts. I'm not going to add to it. Tyler Little says, what about Ismail Assar? Great replacement for Utara. Finally can unload that waste of a transfer. It sounds like you've answered your own question, Tyler, so I don't need to. Alex Mewett says, is the Forest game being moved to the Monday in game week 33 a clue that they're not bothered about moving the non-European teams game week 34 games to game week 33? Am I reading too much into it? Could be both, Alex. I'm certainly not wrong to investigate the thought process of the theory behind that. I just think ultimately Sky wanted Tottenham, Nottingham Forest on the Monday night, and that's probably it. So the Premier League haven't got a say in that, by the way. So the Premier League can move the fixtures, okay? Particularly the ones not selected for television. But ultimately, if a broadcaster wants Tottenham versus Nottingham Forest as their Monday night game, and there isn't a reason not to put it there, it'll go there. And the prospect of, well, if Nottingham Forest have an FA Cup semi-final, they could play in that midweek, isn't a good enough reason. So ultimately, that's down to the broadcaster. On the rescheduling of the fixtures, the broadcaster will obviously have a say in the games where they have the ownership of the game, right? I mentioned this on Chips and the Arseman 3 as well, right? Bournemouth versus Manchester United, Arsenal versus Palace, and City versus Villa have all been picked up by, I think, Sky. Yeah, that's correct. All Sky. For that could be moved to 33. And I spoke about the prospect that if all three of those games got moved from 34 because of FA Cup semi-final involvement for Palace, Bournemouth and City and or Villa respectively, there is a chance that one of the Arsenal or United fixtures gets held back for 36 because TV will have a say in what happens there. Otherwise, they're going to have two of the games they own probably playing on the same night. Highly likely. So, but the Premier League will have some sort of say. So on Forest Brentford, as an example, that's just up to the Premier League. It's up to the Premier League. There's no TV involved. Brighton, West Ham, be up to the Premier League. Southampton versus Fulham, be up to the Premier League. So it's important to separate the difference between the Premier League and the broadcaster. Ultimately, to read into Forest, don't. Your theory is fine, Alex. But ultimately, the game is on the Monday night. It's nothing to do with the Premier League. It's Sky's decision to put that game there. David said, are you still on wildcard 34? I am after using free hit earlier in the season. I'm thinking of bench boost 35 after my wildcard 34. You'd need specifics on the team that would be very interesting for that, mate. And I don't know if you're projecting certain doubles to go there. To answer your question, ultimately, yes. I have very little choice with the chips I have available. So yeah, I'll be wildcard 34 unless I get a terrible run of... I have had a terrible run of injuries, it feels like, but I'd need a very, very bad run of injuries all in one go, considering I've just had to get rid of a load like Trent and Lewis Hall. Lee Jackson, staff new mate, what did you make of the Tuchel squad announcement video? Don't recall England managers ever doing them before, but think it's a great idea to help fans understand his thinking. I didn't watch all of it, Lee, so probably wrong for me to comment, but I certainly support changes in methodology and people getting a better understanding of why he may be thinking certain things. Yeah, seems good to me, mate. Right, it's 1 o'clock. I'm going to cover 4 more and then we'll wrap this up. Ajan says, best keeper to buy for the rest of the season. Matt Sells. If he's got to last you to the end, that'll do you most of it, I think. Neil Kager says, apparently he had to drop 3 players due to UEFA team limits. Is this on Tuchel? Okay, I'm not sure of that, if that's raw international football, but I'm not questioning that it's wrong. Stavros says, hi James, in regard from Cyprus, using the arse man between 31 and 33. I feel the bench boost chip will be basically burned as the double afterwards not big. When do you suggest to use it? Free hit on 37 if blank. Now, potentially, subject to what you've got, mate. Subject to what you've got. But possibly now. I've spoken about this quite a bit. If you land nice now and you insist on having Arseman 31 to 33, 30 is probably going to be as good as any other week from that perspective. Diljit says, in fact, I've only got a few questions left, so I'll finish with David T. Diljit07 says, who has been your personal favourite Spurs manager for attacking football? As a neutral, enjoyed the season with Bale and Van der Vaart under Harry. Yeah, but that's down to the incredible individual quality of those players with Modric and big fan of Aaron Lenny and Jermaine Defoe, part of that. So individuals. And to be honest, I saw a piece with Harry Redknapp. It was like a short that someone had produced in the week asking if he would take any players from the comparison players from the current Tottenham team to the 2012 team. And individual wise, the 2012 team by like miles. So the answer is Maurizio Pochettino, mate. In terms of what he got out of that as a collective, right? That team nearly won the league with the likes of Eric Lamela playing every week, right? So it's Pochettino is the answer, mate. CD says, hi James, thanks for convincing me not to get Essential Haaland last game week. Got Bruno and Marmoush instead. Well done. And David T says, if you had to predict the England lineup for our first game of the World Cup, that's more interesting, isn't it? First game of the World Cup. Okay. Factoring in that some players are injury prone. Jordan Pickford, Trent. Stones and Gay. Lewis Hall. Declan Rice, Adam Wharton. Jude Bellingham, Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka, Harry Kane. Close. Might be miles off. Who's playing on the left? Probably Jude. we'll invert Trent and we'll push Lewis Hall up, and yeah, we'll see. Very difficult to predict at this stage when I've not even seen Tuchel's team play once. Okay, guys, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much to everybody who's contributed in the chat. As ever, smash a like, hit the sub button. For those on the audio, I said a 5-star review goes a really long way. On Monday, we're going to have a little bit of an analytical look at some of the Premier League season so far. It will be FPL relevant in terms of certain things statistically to consider for the final 9 game weeks of the season. Got an interesting people's poll vote to keep an eye on for Tuesday's podcast. Wednesday's likely to be Clash of Correspondence now. Chelsea versus Tottenham, Gary Mansell and Ricky Saunders. Clayton James show is probably going to be on Thursday now next week. And Ask James is going to be probably similar time, probably 12 o'clock next Friday. If you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/planetfpl. Do it because you want to support the show or because you would like access to the additional content, which will continue to run all throughout the international break. Which leaves me to say, be nice to each other, everyone. Play it your way, but don't really play anything at the moment. For the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please, man child.